Now, he is known as the world's best referee, and I was lucky enough to have the pleasure of meeting him last Friday ahead of the Rabodirect Pro 12 final, which Leinster won, of course. It is Nigel Owens. Now our next guest is Wales's and possibly the world's finest referee. He has officiated in many of the sport's biggest matches, including this weekend's Rabodirect Pro 12 clash between Leinster and Glasgow Warriors. Joining us this morning, I'm very excited to meet him, is Player's Choice for a Referee, Nigel Owens. Nigel, a huge privilege for me to meet you. You've given me so many great memories across my life as a rugby fan. I thank you for that. Now, we're going to talk first of all about the big match tomorrow night, because I want to talk about Brian tomorrow night. It's his final hurrah, his last hurrah, a big final farewell for him. I know you can't talk about the match and who you would like to win or where your preferences lie. Being a referee, I know you have no preferences, but Brian has given us some extraordinary rugby. He's a player, well, he's quite unique. He's probably one of the world's finest players. Would you consider him so?
Definitely. You get players that sort of become stars for a couple of games or for a period of a couple of years, but when you think he's been the best centre in the world probably for the best part of a decade, if not a bit more, and even now when his career's coming to an end, he's still, he'd be one of the players that you'd want on your team sheet. And there's a lot of great players in the world. Not many of them are great for that period of time. And even less of them are great players and are great people and are good, genuine rugby people as well. And he's one of them, not only a great player, but a great man as well, a true ambassador for rugby on the field and off the field. And not many of them come by. And you look back at some of the big names, like in Ireland, you'd have Willie John McBride, one of the legends of the game, and Brian Driscoll will be one of them. And there's not many of those people about as time goes by that you look back on and admire of what he achieved on the field and what a good bloke he is off the field as well. But he'll definitely be one of those. How
does it work when you're a referee, when you love the game, and say you've just seen Brian score the most amazing try, and you want to, in your brain, you're thinking, oh, that was incredible. But you park that side of you. You park the fan side of you, and you have your referee head on. So how do you learn? Because as a true fan of the game, you love the game, so you're going to have a natural response, but you're thinking about it purely from a referee's perspective.
Yes, and I think a lot of it is because the pressure on you as a referee in the matches, especially the big matches now, is massive. Yeah. It is when you think, I'm going to make a decision in a split second, and I know that everybody's going to be looking at this decision 3 or 4 times again and slowing it down to slow motion and then making their mind up, and I'm going to make it like that. So the pressure on you is massive, and the biggest pressure of it is dealing with that pressure and concentrating for that 80 minutes and getting those decisions right. So most of the time you're pretty oblivious to what goes around. Sometimes I go home and people tell me, what a great game on the weekend, and I think, oh, was it? You're in the game, in a hard game and in a great occasion and stuff, but it's only when I sort of sit down and I have to review my own game, my own performance then, when I get home during the week and I sit, God, it was a great game. So, but you do appreciate sometimes some tries will be scored, you're thinking, oh, that was hell of a try.
What was the toughest decision you ever had to make then?
On the field or off it?
On the field. We'll talk about the off-the-field decision shortly. But on the field, when you just had to go, okay, it's a big one.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of them. Because sometimes when the scores are really close towards the end of the game,
you're changing people's careers.
Well, you are.
Futures. You've got a whole fans who are going to love you or hate you.
And you see the easy decisions to make in rugby are the popular ones. Yeah. The unpopular ones are often the big ones that are usually the right ones. And for you to make those right ones can make you unpopular, but you're there to do a job. I'm there to do a job, and I'm not there to be popular. I'm there to make the right decision. And there's been a lot of decisions over the years where, this is a huge call, and you just hope to yourself, I hope I got that right.
I hope I got that right.
And most of the time they are, thankfully.
Most of the time?
God, I'm only human. I make mistakes.
Do you look back sometimes and think I make mistakes?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It's impossible to referee a rugby match and not make a mistake. It's impossible. You're never going to do it. And if any young referee out there thinking, right, I'm going out the field and I'm going to be 100% correct in everything I do, it's impossible. But the better you are, and a bit of luck along the way as well, the mistakes you do make, they don't really matter in the game. They're lost in the game, and it doesn't have an outcome.
So you don't look back and think, oh gosh, actually I made the wrong call there. That could have changed the outcome of that game.
It does happen sometimes.
It does happen sometimes.
It does, yeah. It does.
That's very honest of you to say that, Nigel.
Well, you've got to, and unfortunately, we're not allowed as referees to say after the game, yeah, sorry, I got that wrong.
Save it for the book.
I will.
Save it for the book.
I've got one book out, Half Time, which came out about 3 years ago, and then when I do finish, the reason behind the name Half Time was that when I do finish, there'll be one full time. So
full time. That's when it can all come out.
It'll be no holds barred in that one, yes.
Can we talk about, and you referenced it there, another big decision, a tough decision made off the field, and that was when you came out. And we were chatting about it there. I was talking about my brother coming out and how difficult it was for him. But for you, as a man surrounded by the world of rugby, the macho, tough world of rugby, to come out, you really struggled with that big time. And telling your parents, you said you told your mum and you got your mum to tell your dad because you were so worried about telling him.
There are two of the biggest challenges that I've come across in my life, and I think that most people will come across in life, is the biggest challenge of all was not how are people going to react, am I going to be able to carry on with my refereeing career, and to think that you have to make a choice between being who you are and carrying on in your sport or a career is a choice that nobody should have to make. But the biggest challenge, the most difficult decision and challenge of all was accepting who I am. And I think that's the biggest challenge for most people, whether you're dealing with sexuality, whether you're dealing with a problem in work, marriage, or whatever it is, in accepting you have a problem is the biggest challenge I think you'll come across. And that to me brought up in an old-fashioned way, in fact, not knowing, didn't really know what a gay person was or what he looked like until I sort of was in my late teens, really, when I sort of was dealing with it with myself. And then between that and other issues, because of that, I got hooked on steroids. I became bulimic with all these issues going on. And
I mean, it got so bad you thought about taking your own life.
I did. I did something one night that I will...
Did you try and end your life?
Yeah, that I'll regret for the rest of my life. I left a note from my mum and dad and took an overdose, and if I hadn't been found within 20 minutes, I was gone. I was airlifted to hospital, and thankfully I was in for about 5-6 days, and the doctor told me that if you ever... you were lucky if we'd have been 20 minutes later, we wouldn't have been able to save you. And that, lying in that hospital bed, and the only child, and my mum and dad came in to see me, and my mum said, if you ever do anything like that again, then you take me and your dad with you. And I thought to myself, what the hell have I done here? And that was the moment where I thought, I need to grow up here. I need to accept who I am. There's nothing I can do about it. This is who I am. And that's when I accepted. And that was the toughest thing I've ever had to do in my life, was accepting who I was. And then came the next challenge then of, can I carry on refereeing in the macho world of rugby? What are people going to say? What are my friends, my family? What are rugby players going to say? Are they going to say, we don't want him refereeing? Am I be allowed to referee? And then that was the next challenge. But that challenge was nothing compared to the challenge of dealing with yourself, of who you are.
Wow. And were you really worried they might say, we don't want you to ref anymore, that might be the result of it?
Yes, because you're going back now around sort of possibly leading up to that period after accepting who I was 15 years ago, 16 years ago, leading up, things were different back then than they are now, and things are better now, thankfully. Although you do get some idiots coming out and saying comments which are in the dinosaur age, which is
Francis making comments,
which is not relevant to today's society at all, and not relevant to players and people today, really, and has no place in society or sport. That does make it. I don't think these people realise when they say these comments, which everybody has an opinion, and you'll be entitled to your opinion in your comments, but to make sure that your comments are right in what you're saying. And I don't think people realise how difficult it is for young people in particular, dealing with who they are, and how difficult they make it when you hear people, people who are still respected in sports saying these comments, how difficult it makes it for people to deal with that then. And I was pleasantly surprised when I did come out, that I had a lot of messages from players, and Barry Williams, the ex-Lions and Welsh player and the Ospreys captain at the time, came up to me in the gym the following morning and said, listen, we've heard, and we respect you, and it makes no difference to us whatsoever. And we have no idea how much that meant, and thankfully everybody been great since. That's all I want, is to be able to get on with my life the same as everybody else, and just be who I am. And that's all everybody should have that entitlement in their life. You know, there should be a place for you in society and in sport, no matter what colour your skin, no matter what country or background you're from, whatever your sexuality, there should be a place for you in society and in sport in particular.
Well, there's most definitely a place for you as one of the greatest referees of all time, and tomorrow night you'll be reffing a big match. I know how I want it to turn out. I want Brian to bring it home for one last final hurrah and round of applause to honour him. You can't say who you want to win, but I know you will miss Brian very sorely.
It's a privilege to be part in any rugby game, and I know I was refereeing his last game when he played his home international in Aviva, the last home international against Italy, and it's a privilege to be on that field tomorrow night to referee the final for the both teams, and in particular greats like Brian O'Driscoll, and as well, you know, one of Leinster's unsung heroes, probably Leo Cullen as well. They're all great players on that field tomorrow night from the both teams. And,
well, Nigel, I look forward to
the
match. I look forward to your decisions. I look forward to the next book, and it's been a real privilege chatting to you, and you've been so honest and open. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much, Nigel Owens.
Thank you.
There you go. Donnacha O'Callaghan said earlier on he's a gentleman, and
I got the sense you liked him.
But he was just such. Do you know what? There was no agenda. He wasn't plugging anything. He wasn't flogging anything. He was just telling a story in the hope that it might help other people going through the same struggle. And we were thinking there actually, what would be a good website to go to if you were affected by any of the issues that he was talking about. And spunout.ie is a great website for young people if they are struggling with their sexuality or feelings of depression. I mean, he went through a whole host of things, and now he's in a place where he's feeling good about things.
Do you think the reason that there's fewer sports people, you look at the NFL, there's now one professional American footballer who's openly gay. There's precious few openly gay professional rugby players. Is that because there is a lower representation of gay guys in professional rugby, or because there is still an unwillingness to come out?
I think there's a reluctance to come out. But you look in GAA now, we're seeing it more. I mean, I think it's changing, and I think people like Nigel talking about it helps it to change, which is all good. I don't think there's a low representation. I think it's just reluctance and fighting against tradition and fear, as he talked about.
Well, coming up after the break, Ireland's answer to One Direction. Hometown are going to be here telling us how their ultimate ambition is to be performing in the O2 this time next year.